Welcome back. Let's put this in the ethers. I know this might be hard to believe, right? It might be hard to believe, but sometimes guys just don't want to fornicate. They just don't want to have sex. Either because they're chasing something out there, they're being occupied with life, right? Or they try to work on themselves. And that's not hard to believe, right? There are some guys out there who's not occupied with sex at all. Because he have a purpose. He's chasing something. Right? Just because a guy don't want to fornicate, that doesn't mean he's inept, he's gay, he's all this and that and the third, etc., so forth and so on, XYZ. That doesn't mean that. All right? A guy is on his purpose. He's on his grind right now. Right? Either that or something's going on in his life. Guys have their life to live too. Either they're facing trouble, right? Either he's doing something great, or either he's in a situation where he had to get himself out of that situation, and the last thing on his mind is sex, right? Sex will only distract him from getting out of that situation. Don't be surprised, right? Female like to think that everything's in the guy's mind, everything that he's thinking is sex, 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 sex. Not necessarily, all right? It might be hard to believe. But some guys out there, sex isn't their prerogative. They just might need somebody to talk to, might need somebody to connect with, might need advice in life, right? And sex isn't their thing. And people need to get this idea out of their head that sex isn't always everything in a guy's life. You know? If anything, they're more of destructive, right? To a guy that can't handle it, to a guy who don't know how to handle these activities, right? If you introduce to him what he's gonna do, he can get lost. He can misuse it. He can be dependent on it, like everything else, right? Like smoking weed, drinking alcohol. Too much of something isn't that great for you, right? And you might have health conditions. Right? What if he's facing erectile dysfunctions, where his libido are very low, right? So people need to get this idea that just because he don't want to have sex, that doesn't mean there's something wrong with him, right? He might have he might use it as fuel to get something, right? Not having sex, use it he's channeling it to get something else, to accomplish something. Alright? So just because guys don't want to have sex, he got something going on with his life. He's on a period of self-discovery. And to some guys, they see sex as just only a distraction. Alright? It's not because they don't want it. It's because they're on their grind, on a better purpose. Alright? And when you have it too much, it's become repetitive. Right? It's like it's overrated sometimes. Sometimes it's very overrated. People over sensationalize this act. Alright? Sometimes sex is only used to procreate. That's it. They understand what the purpose of sex is. Sex is used to procreate. And some guys they took that into their head and they only fornicate when they want to procreate. Alright? There's a multitude of reasons why guys don't want to have sex. It's just people need to understand that that isn't always everything in the guy's mind. You know, it shouldn't be always in the guy's mind. People should already understand that guys have other things to do than just that act. You know, everything has to be over sexualized these days. It's all about sex this, sex that, sex. You know, if you have got a man in his right set of mind, that's not all he think about. Right? He have philosophical questions. He think about life. He think about how can he make it to the next day. He's thinking about the future. He's thinking about how to overcome obstacles in life. Right? He's thinking about innovate new ideas. Now when you occupy your mind with just sex all times, that's inhibiting from achieving those goals. That's inhibiting from pursuing that dream, that purpose. Right? Sex sometimes used as a vice. It holds people back. right? Sex are used to hold people back because sometimes a couples who are in bad relationship, guys don't want to get out of that relationship because sex will hold him back. He's in that relationship with just only sex, and he know that relationship is not good for him, but he's still there because his partner seduced him with that act. Right now he's addicted to it. Now he can't escape it. Now it's destroying him. It's eating up himself inside. Right? That's what I mean when it could destroy the guy's life. Right? He don't know when it's too much. His only purpose is to fornicate. That's not the only purpose of a guy. A guy should never have that kind of ideas in his mind. Just to fornicate all the time. That's just a person that can't control himself. A true man, a man of dignity, he can control his urges. He know when to say no, how to say no, and why to say no. So this idea of a guy who just want to have sex, sometimes guys just don't want it. Alright? Some guys, if you want to be on your purpose, on the grind, sometimes you gotta let this thing go. So you can chase bigger and better things. There's other things in life than just sex. There's other things in life than just fornicating with another mate. Alright? So life is not about sex. Alright? It's about being a good person, how you can live your life, how you can improve your life, how can you influence others, how can you change society, how can you do all this stuff. Alright? It's not all about sex. And people like to focus that thing a lot. Because people are weak to it. Alright? One thing that people are very weak is their sexual urges. They can't control it. Some men out there, they can't control it. They're being destroyed by it every day. That's one of the biggest challenges going through men right now. Is their inability to control their sexual urges. Right? That's why you see a lot of guys out there who's addicted to online pornographies. They can't control these urges. Alright, then now when they see a guy who's on his undergrind, who know when to say no, now there's something wrong with him? No, there's nothing wrong with him. Sometimes guys don't have the energies to focus on this. Some guys got their priorities straight. They realize that my priority should be on this, that, etc., not on just sex. Right? My priority is to be the better father that I could be, the better brother, the better siblings. Right? Not just sex. Sex is a distraction. He has totally misconstrued the sexual act. It should be a sacred act. Right? Now it's like becoming a common thing. People think it's common thing to talk about. Right? Casual sex. That's becoming a common thing. Since when did that become casual? Since when sex become casual? Right? It should be a sacred act between you and your loved one. Preserve and save for special moments and occasions. Right? Just because a guy don't want to fornicate means nothing wrong. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with him. Right? It's perfectly fine. Right? You can agree to disagree. That's fine. I don't care. Right? You have your opinion. But sometimes I understand some guys is in this position. I understand what they're going through. They just sometimes don't want it because they're on a different mind game. All right, they're on a bigger playing field than anybody else. They're pursuing something that's greater. Right, not just sex. To me, the idea of sex is totally overrated, over sensationalized, big time. Alright? If people would focus on their energy on something else better than just sex, the world would be a better place. It doesn't have to be sex all the time. We're inundated with sex all the time in this world we're living in. Everything has to be sex. This, that, and that. Even monuments, statues, ruined areas, it's all have some kind of sexual connotations in it. Right? We need to stop focusing on these kind of things and focus on solutions to better off the world. Right? These things to be preoccupied with are destroying society. Right? Just to be thinking about sex all the time. Human race as human being are better than that. Right? But just because a guy who don't want sex, who think platonically, right? That doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. Sometimes a guy just don't want it. But if you have something to say, leave a comment below if I missed something. As always, like, share, subscribe, and peace and blessings.